welcome back. Today we're jumping right into this explainer about one of America's most infamous, manipulative, and bafflingly unidentified serial killers. Picture this, it's the late 1960s. Northern California, specifically the San Francisco Bay Area, is right in the middle of the counterculture movement and the summer of love. But a really dark shadow fell over that entire region. A phantom began terrorizing these communities. And he didn't just use shocking violence. He initiated this terrifying, calculated game of cat and mouse that literally gripped the entire nation. Let's unpack exactly how this phantom pulls it all off.
You know, what makes this case uniquely chilling isn't just the crimes themselves. It's the killer's absolute, unquenchable thirst for fame. He definitely wasn't content to just hide out in the shadows. He wanted the world to know him. So he gave himself a name, the Zodiac. He even designed his own personal brand, which was this chilling symbol of a circle with a cross through it, looking almost exactly like the crosshairs of a gun. To really dial up the terror, he even wore an eerie executioner-style hood with that exact symbol on it during one of his attacks. He was essentially turning his horrific acts into a perverse theatrical performance, demanding the spotlight and just reveling in the fear he was causing.
Okay, let's dive into this, because to really understand his manipulative nature, you just have to look at the massive, terrifying gap between reality and his own self-created myth. The police officially confirmed 5 victims who tragically lost their lives to this killer, but the Zodiac? Well, he claimed a staggering 37 victims in his letters to the press. This massive discrepancy perfectly highlights his deep-seated need for control. Was he truly a prolific monster who somehow evaded detection dozens of times over? Or was he just an egomaniac inflating his own monstrous myth to stoke public fear? The truth likely lies somewhere in that terrifying gap between his actual deeds and his insatiable appetite for infamy.
To really grasp the rising tide of panic back then, we need to map out the chilling progression of his attacks around the San Francisco area. We're looking at a tightly condensed timeline of confirmed strikes here: December 1968, July 1969, and September 1969. Over just 10 short months, his violence escalated rapidly. This wasn't some drawn-out crime spree spread over a decade. It was a sudden, intense burst of terror. Communities were absolutely paralyzed. Teenagers were handed strict curfews, people just stopped going out at night entirely, and every shadow became a threat as massive shockwaves of panic ripped through the entire Bay Area. The brutal reality of these crimes actually began right before Christmas. In December 1968, a young couple was parked in their car on a secluded lover's lane. Out of nowhere, the Zodiac struck for the first confirmed time, shooting them mercilessly in the freezing cold. It was a totally random, unprovoked attack that utterly shattered the sense of safety in Northern California. It sent this grim, undeniable message that anyone, anywhere, could be a target, completely upending the peace of the suburban communities surrounding San Francisco. The horror continued right into the summer and fall of 1969, but this time, the killer left behind some critical clues. In July, he shot another parked couple, and in September, he attacked a couple picnicking at Lake Berryessa. During that Berryessa attack, he actually spoke to them. He claimed to be an escaped convict from a prison in Montana before viciously stabbing them. But remarkably, one victim from each of these brutal attacks managed to survive. For the very first time, these incredibly brave survivors were able to provide law enforcement with physical descriptions of the man behind the mask, finally giving police their first real glimpse of the phantom.
But as we established, physical violence just wasn't enough for him. He shifted his tactics heavily into psychological warfare. He started sending these threatening, boastful letters directly to 3 major publications: the San Francisco Chronicle, the Examiner, and the Vallejo Times-Herald. He aggressively demanded that these papers publish his letters on their front pages. He took full credit for the murders and explicitly threatened to kill more innocent people. He even threatened to target a school bus full of children if his demands were ignored. Think about that. He effectively took an entire region hostage with just a pen and paper.
Inside those letters were his most infamous creations: cryptograms. A cryptogram is basically just a message written in a secret code, and the Zodiac sent 4 of these mind-bending puzzles to the press. Along with them, he made a massive promise. He claimed his true identity was hidden inside the ciphers. He was essentially turning his horrific murder spree into a twisted public game, daring police, journalists, and everyday citizens to catch him, if they were smart enough to break his code. Now, what's really interesting about these numbers is their incredible staying power. Out of the 4 ciphers he sent, only 2 have been solved. Just pause and think about that for a second. Even now, decades later, half of his coded messages remain completely unbroken. Despite the invention of modern supercomputers, artificial intelligence, and the tireless work of top-tier crypto analysts from intelligence agencies all around the globe, two of his darkest secrets are still locked away. They absolutely refuse to yield to modern technology.
But let's look at what actually happened when that very first code was cracked back in 1969 by a local school teacher and his wife. Spoiler alert, it didn't contain his name like he promised. Instead, it revealed this deeply disturbing message: "I like killing people because it is so much fun." Seeing those exact words really brings us face to face with the killer's chilling psyche. He wasn't hiding behind grand ideologies or complicated motives. He was killing simply for his own sick amusement. It was a stark reminder of the pure sociopathy law enforcement was dealing with.
After that first breakthrough, the trail on the remaining codes went agonizingly cold. 51 years. That is how much time passed before anyone managed to crack the Zodiac's second cipher, which was known as the Z340. Over a half-century of tireless work, false hope, and dead ends, until an international team of 3 amateur codebreakers and programmers finally unraveled it in 2020. The sheer amount of dedication it took to keep attacking a 50-year-old puzzle is simply incredible.
Let's see how this builds, because you might think that after more than half a century of waiting, that 2020 breakthrough would finally give us his name, right? Well, it didn't. The decoded message was just more of the exact same psychological game. It read, "I hope you are having lots of fun in trying to catch me," followed by more arrogant mocking of the police and the television hosts who were hunting him. Even unsealed half a century later, his message from the past was just another empty taunt. It was literally a ghost continuing to laugh from the shadows.
And that brings us to the manhunt itself. When I say this was a massive investigation, I truly mean it. Law enforcement looked into an absolutely staggering 2,500 suspects over the decades. 2,500 individuals were investigated, interviewed, or scrutinized in connection with the Zodiac crimes. And remember, the book of this happened way before the era of modern digital databases. Detectives were cross-referencing thousands of physical index cards, teletypes, and manila folders, trying to find a needle in a massive analog haystack.
Out of those thousands of names, one primary suspect emerged far, far above the rest, a man named Arthur Lee Allen. For years, he was the absolute focal point of the entire investigation. I mean, he wore a Zodiac brand watch, he was in the area during the attacks, and investigators found highly suspicious materials in his home. However, here is the frustrating reality of the justice system. Circumstantial suspicion is not proof. Despite a mountain of really odd coincidences, there was never quite enough hard, definitive physical evidence to actually charge him with the crimes before he passed away in 1992.
So, the crucial point is, why did the trail run cold? The investigation essentially hit 3 major dead ends. First, DNA technology just wasn't advanced enough at the time, and modern attempts haven't yielded a definitive matched profile from the stamps of the envelopes. Second, there were no clear, usable fingerprints left behind, only partials and smudges that couldn't confirm a solid identity. And third, perhaps most frustratingly of all, he simply stopped writing letters after 1974. The phantom who so aggressively craved the spotlight suddenly and inexplicably vanished into the shadows, leaving police with absolutely nothing but silence.
Because of these massive hurdles and obviously the agonizing passage of time, it's really easy to assume this is a closed book. But it is not. The Zodiac mystery remains an officially open, active case with both the FBI and the Vallejo Police Department. Law enforcement is technically still looking for him, still preserving that physical evidence in climate-controlled vaults. They're holding out hope that an unexpected technological breakthrough, perhaps something in the realm of advanced familial DNA tracing, might finally crack the case wide open, just like it did for the Golden State Killer.
Which leaves us with one final haunting question. After 50-plus years of cryptic codes, massive manhunts, and agonizing clues, will the Zodiac ever truly be unmasked? Will modern forensic science finally catch up to a phantom who stopped writing half a century ago? Or did he actually manage to play his twisted game and walk away completely untouched by justice? It's a chilling historical puzzle that remains just as captivating today as it was back in 1969. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.